You see, something's going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the NY Patriot Show. And this is the fourth installment of the MK Ultra series. Obviously, I got my boy Thresh back on with me. Thank you very much for coming back on, Thresh. At this point, I think the first two episodes have already dropped, and I've gotten some decent feedback, and I thought some good comments. So,
good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So, I'm definitely glad to keep going with this. I mean, I would have kept going with it regardless anyway, but But finally at episode 4. Probably be 5 parts, maybe a 6th on the MK Ultra still going on today. In this episode, I do think we'll kind of like get more into a little bit of like even like interesting storylines that went on with like behind the scenes with MK Ultra stuff. Depending on the timing, like I do have like some of the more weirder experiments that were going on with LSD and dolphins. But it depends. So that might end up in the next one, but. Yeah, I think in this one we're going to be kind of starting off with Sidney Gottlieb again, just a little bit of him and like kind of getting into MK Ultra. We're going to have Frank Olson, I'm sure, to talk about, George White, and I guess maybe even some people that might have been, maybe tied in with like the mafia or some kind of weird shit. Drugs, all sorts of weird stuff that I really didn't even know was going on with people associated with MK Ultra. So, even though some of these stories might be kind of known already, I think a lot of people know of Frank Olson. I think at least our spin on it will have some extra stuff in there that isn't like commonly talked about with this stuff. So, I'm excited to cover it. I guess I'll get going. Oh, Thresh, real quick. Let everybody know what's up with you and where they can find your stuff. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. It's just Thrash Talk on Instagram and YouTube, and I still got to make pages for the other places like Spotify and stuff, but I just follow Instagram because I'm actually just going to release an episode on Pueblo Clowns, since the one I did for you a while back was a long time ago and wasn't many views. So I figure people that didn't catch it would like to see that again. So
the series that you did with me.
No, I'm going to redo it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to redo it.
Oh, yeah.
Put the first episode out.
That's a really good idea because, like, honestly, that was also how long ago?
No, that was like at least a year ago, right?
I've had people, and it's because they're obviously new. I've had new listeners, especially on like video content, actually like suggest topics that it's like, hey, I've actually covered that before, but it was so long ago. You know what I'm saying? Because this is going on like 3 years now that I've been doing this. If I did something 2 years ago, I mean, listen, odds are you're not going to find it, just scrolling a few times, especially if it's on YouTube. I'm not even going to have that much time on there because this is my 4th fucking account. You know what I'm saying? And there's like certain things from the old stuff that we did that has already been issues that I know I can't put on there. So.
Yeah, no, I think that series is on your YouTube.
Okay.
It's like, but I wanted to redo it and add more to it.
Oh, you should, because that really is I think more people should look at Native American stuff and occultism and magic symbolism. There's so many ties. It's really, really interesting. You're almost like, it's like you almost start wondering, it's like, who started borrowing what from who first, or like, I don't know, very weird. Or is it, again, almost like the whole thing with the pyramids? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got all these pyramids scattered throughout the world in different civilizations, and you're like, how did these people know to, like, make the same things? I think a lot of it has to do with, like, a collective consciousness that you're tapping into. Could that also be why Indians, if they were occultists or, whatever, spiritualists or mystics, and they were tapping into this thing, that's why they had the same symbols as people from over on the other side of the world? If they were doing the same thing, they understood the same symbols because it was describing a vision that they both shared and had. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's so many connections.
There is a lot. Yes,
it really connects to like Sumerian and Mayan and kind of
I even think their clown kind of stuff is just very interesting to go check out. So if you do cover that, I really think you should definitely, cover the clown show.
No, I'm probably gonna be putting it up in probably a couple weeks.
Nice. All right, good.
I'm gonna record it and everything. Good. But yeah, my Instagram is thrash_talk.
Yeah,
there's nothing on there. There's no profile picture or anything. So
yeah, I'll throw up all your links. I may need, if you don't mind, after the show, actually just resend me all your links again that you would like me to share. Yep. Okay. All right. And I guess I'll get into it. You wanted me to start it off, right? I'll start off with a little bit of Sidney Gottlieb. Sure, yep. I know we've covered him and we've mentioned him over and over again, but I figured I would kind of give a little bit of a brief discussion about how he kind of really got into MK Ultra. And then there was 2 other doctors that he does mention that kind of worked under him that I thought were rather interesting. So I'll try not to spend too much time on it. But July 13th, 1951, Gottlieb had his first day of work at the CIA. The deputy director for plans, Alan Dulles, hired him on Ira Baldwin's recommendation. Baldwin had founded and run the biowarfare program at Fort Detrick years earlier, and he had kept Gottlieb in his orbit throughout the years. Now, I don't know if maybe stuff that he was doing then, he thought maybe Gottlieb was kind of onto himself. Maybe, I don't know. But I do wonder, why was that guy interested in Gottlieb to begin with? Project Bluebird was already underway when Gottlieb was brought on board. It had experimented with special interrogation techniques on captured prisoners overseas at black sites like Camp King and Fort Clayton and Villa Schuster, again, all places that we talked about in the past ones, using drugs to attempt to break their ego and control and get information. But they thought that Bluebird kind of lacked scientific knowledge and obedience, and Dulles wanted Gottlieb to kind of get it on that course, get a little bit more of scientific knowledge and obedience going on. After going through some training, which I don't know what they trained him on, but supposedly he got trained and he was named chief of the newly formed chemical division of the Technical Services Staff, TSS. It's funny how there was an SS still in there.
Yep.
What the hell? OSS, TSS. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the chemical core of the Army as well. So that can be kind of confusing.
On August 20th, 1951, Dulles ordered Bluebird to be expanded and centralized and renamed the Project Artichoke, which we talked about previously. Dulles was promoted to Deputy Director of Central Intelligence days after intensifying Artichoke's scale. This pretty much ensured protection and encouragement of all of Gottlieb's future mind control projects from the highest levels of the U.S. government. This supposedly kind of was I think you would agree, Thresh, is kind of how he got in and was almost given carte blanche to kind of do whatever. Or what he ends up doing,
Yeah, he pretty much ran it.
Yeah, this was his shoe-in. It's he's arrived.
Well, can I add something?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
A lot of people would think, oh, he ran the whole entire MK Ultra thing. He did everything, but really, it was the higher ups that did. They're the ones that got the contracts with the schools and the hospitals and the prisons and all that. Sidney didn't really have anything to do with that. But once, the higher ups got all the contracts, then he was the one that implemented all the testing and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's even, I'll get to it at some point. There's 2 people that I mentioned that worked under him. But I mean, you also have to realize, I think part of the reason why this series was also kind of long is that we did also show, there was plenty of other doctors that were involved besides this guy as well. That's exactly why he's on the 4th episode now, because we were already talking about people that were kind of involved prior.
Well, honestly, I mean, there's so much information and so many doctors and so many experiments and so many stuff. If we were to tell you every little thing and all this stuff, we'd have just a fucking podcast on MK Ultra.
Yeah, for real. You really could do some shit like that. But, all right. Let me. Oh, you know what? I don't know if we ever mentioned it prior. I don't know if it was something that we might have brought up or not on the MK Ultra show. Because I think I was like, when I was editing part 3, I think I realized like it was after that I had the idea. And I swear to you, man, especially in certain pictures of Gottlieb, if you were to put Inspector Gadget's face next to him, you'd be like, holy fuck. He's even got the nose and the chin and everything. But you remember when I was joking around saying that, like, you know, I thought Inspector Gadget could have possibly been Sidney Gottlieb because, like, you know, Gottlieb was very much into the gadgets. Like, you remember how, like, I think I even considered it, like, 007 type silly shit, but he was actually doing stuff like that.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and, like, he had a daughter named Penny. Yeah. Now, in the cartoon, Inspector Gadget has a niece named Penny. You know, and it's just really weird. I don't know. I was just like...
Well, you know, the technical services staff, I have some notes right here. You know, they're... So they were individuals who performed functions as acquisitions, cataloging, material processing, metadata analysis, preservation, serials, authority work. But right here, they provided support gadgets, disguises, forgeries, secret writings, weapons. Yeah,
they were like making poisons. You know, it's like all like they had some silly stuff. I thought actually, if you kind of look at it, and I was like, this is so like 007 like.
Tons of stuff. I mean, they had syringes that you could put through cork, like cork wine bottles and stuff, but the syringes were so small, the needles, that you couldn't tell that you did anything. Just all kinds of gadgets.
Yes. All right, let me continue here. Dulles and Gottlieb both believed that there was a way to influence and control the human mind that could lead to global mastery. They were also still kind of wanting to get to, they thought it was still possible to maybe get a truth serum still, even though that was something that we covered in the first, episode or 2 that, seemed to be something that they couldn't really perfect. They still thought that might have been possible. Gottlieb conducted experiments using THC, cocaine, heroin, mescaline, before realizing LSD had not been properly tested or investigated by the agency. After trying LSD for the first time himself, Gottlieb accelerated the LSD experiments at the agency, testing it on agents who agreed to be dosed under controlled environments and some who agreed to be dosed by surprise. That's ballsy. LSD had been invented only a decade earlier, and a few Americans knew it existed. After months of experimenting, he looked for help from the Special Operations Division at Dietrich. With this agreement, the CIA required the knowledge and facilities of the Army to develop bioweapons suited for the CIA. He knew Dulles, who was the director of Central Intelligence under President Eisenhower, would approve anything he wanted to do. So he came up with a new idea that gave him authority over all CIA research into mind control, including the ability to test drugs on witting and unwitting Americans, which was supposedly not being done under Artichoke. So Dulles formally approved Project MKUltra on April 13th, supposedly 1953. And his brother, John Foster Dulles, was tapped for the Secretary of State at that time, giving even more further diplomatic cover to the project. So, it seems like everything just fell into place. On April 10th, Dulles described the program and others like it in a speech to an alumni at Princeton University, referencing the new battlefield of brain warfare brain warfare in quotations, that was his words, and the battle for controlling the human mind. Real quick, there was 2 people that did end up kind of working under Gottlieb that I thought was interesting, and I think I might have mentioned one of them in one of the older episodes because I thought he was just like a random person I came across, and now I think I realized that he did work for Gottlieb. Gottlieb selected multiple researchers, scientists, and ex-OSS members to work for him under MKUltra's sub-projects. He sponsored physicians such as Donald Ewan Cameron, which might have been somebody I think I might have mentioned in the first or second episode, and Harris Isbell in psychiatric research, including non-consensual human experiments. Interesting. Donald Ewan Cameron was a Scottish-born psychiatrist. He is largely known today for his central role in unethical medical experiments and development of psychological and medical torture techniques for the CIA. He served as president of the American Psychiatric Association from 1952 to 1953. He was also the Canadian president of the Canadian Psychiatric Association from 1958 to 1959. He was the American Psychopathological Association from 1963. He was in the Society of Biological Psychiatry in 1965. I mean, this guy was in like tons of shit. And Cameron was involved in administering electroconvulsive therapy and experimental drugs, including poisons and hallucinogens such as LSD, to patients and prisoners without their knowledge or informed consent. Some of this work supposedly took place in the context of Project MKUltra program, for the mind control and torture techniques. Decades after his own death, the psychic driving technique, which I wasn't going to get into, but he had this supposed technique he developed, which was like kind of, I think, to get like stuff out of people, continued to be a use in torture of prisoners like around the world. So like even like his form of like fucking with your head and like mentally torturing you to get shit out of you seems to be something that like a lot of people have tried to reduplicate, that like do this to prisoners. So it's not just it's not just to him anymore. I guess it worked good enough that a lot of people have started using it. Then there's this one person, and I find this interesting, especially with one of the things that they're associated with. Harris Isbell was another one that I mentioned. And that was an American pharmacologist and director of research for the NIMH, NIMH, Addiction Research Center at the Public Health Service Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, from 1945 to 1963. I mean, even that NIMH thing I find interesting because, like, there is that movie, and I've mentioned it plenty of times, The Secret of NIMH, which I do think is very occult. And it does show, like, kind of like experimentations on rats or mice or whatever it was. And, like, even the Mormons, depending on, like, what they believe in, but there are archaeologists that are Mormons that have been out there and, like, have found something that I think is more of like an NIM or the NIH or something that they still pronounce as NIM, that they think is like proof of like them existing in that area. So like that NIM word is like kind of important in all the ways, and it seems maybe sketchy here. He did extensive research on physical and psychological effects of various drugs on humans, imprisoned narcotics offenders also. He used it on them. Early work investigated aspects of physical dependence with opiates and barbiturates, while later worked as part of the MKUltra project investigating psychedelic drugs, including LSD. The research was extensively reported in academic journals such as the Journal of Pharmacology and Experimental Therapeutics and the Archives of Neurology and Psychiatry. Real quick, Isbell and his associates, including Abraham Wickler, published extensively on the effects of drugs, including, I find this interesting, including opiates, synthetic opioids, barbiturates, alcohol, amphetamine, and multiple psychedelics and THC. There's a couple of things that I've come across during this time period, and I think even things that Thrash may get into, where it does seem like they might be involved in like opiate shit. It's just like, of course, why not? Slavery right there. And I can say that from my own experience from the past. That's slavery, that drug. They tested on human subjects with over 125 publications. I mean, they did a lot of stuff. Among their experimental research results were the documentation of physical dependence on barbiturates, physical dependence on alcohol, tolerance to amphetamine, the clinical use of opiate antagonists like Narcan as treatment for opiate overdoses. They experimented with the ability of methadone to alleviate opiate withdrawal symptoms. And they did cross-tolerance between LSD and psilocybin and the ability of pure THC to cause marijuana-like effects. And one other thing I just wanted to throw in, methadone, it's a synthetic opioid, and that was actually developed in Germany in 1937. So that's even like another weird thing. Like, I do understand how that can get people off of, I guess, heroin and maybe save someone's life from, like, getting a hot shot or whatever. But from my experience, from what I've seen, like, it is kind of like a lot of people on that program will literally come out and say it themselves. It's liquid handcuffs, and they maybe wish they got off of it a different way. It's just like now the state's giving you your fix. You know what I'm saying? And you have to keep going to them for it. It's kind of like, it's almost like, we're going to get you off the street drugs that, we're maybe not really getting able to tax or making much off of, even though they brought it here anyway. And now, we're going to get you hooked on that shit and then somehow just bring you straight to us. And now we're just going to hand it to you. Straight up hand it to you now. Well, we're going to maintain it.
I just looked it up right here. One of the creators of it worked for IG Farben, the exact chemical company we covered before in like episode 2, I think. That is the Nazi company that basically created the gas and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the reason I really just wanted to cover this person is because there was a little bit in there that, again, drug dependence. I just wonder if, who knows?
Well, in methadone, it could be pretty dangerous all on its own. That people die from the methadone even.
Yo, a lot of people that I knew from back in the day that ended up going on that program. I mean, to be totally honest with you, maybe 2 out of 10 actually did it and actually stopped using other drugs and may have gotten their shit together. But even then, it's a lot of them, they were still because the thing is, if you're on it and you're on a high dose, you have to bang a lot of dope to even get high. So it's almost wasting your money. So now they start switching over to benzos, because then that will give them another nod, the nod that they liked from heroin mixed with the methadone, and that's actually very lethal.
Oh, okay.
Methadone and a benzo together, that can actually take you out.
Wow.
And I have heard of that happen way too many times to people, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's crazy. They're mixing the benzo with that. I mean, the benzos alone are very dangerous.
Yep. But that's all I really had on. I mean, I know Gottlieb has Operation Midnight Climax. I figured maybe if you wanted to get into that yourself, I didn't want to steal the whole show already. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. With Harris Isbell, when he would experiment on the prisoners, he used their addiction as a, how do I put it? He basically used their addiction to get them to
do what he wanted.
Agree to do the experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, he used it
And
against
he wouldn't
them.
even tell them what drug. He would just say, "Oh, we're just trying a new drug. If if it works out, we'll give you your dose of heroin or whatever."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give you your fix if you just do this.
Yeah.
Fucked
Very.
up.
Yeah. Very, very fucked up. And a lot of the prisoners were just horrified with the LSD and stuff because. Yeah, he's giving them LSD, but he's not really telling them what he's giving them or anything. All of a sudden, a half an hour, these guys are flipping out, thinking they're going crazy.
Yeah, I could imagine unwillingly being given that shit if you've never taken it before. Oh, damn. Whew.
Yeah, unwittingly would be ridiculous, especially now
I could see some people
most
thinking like,
people
"Yo, am I
have kind
losing
of
my
heard
mind?"
of LSD. They know what LSD is, but then really just the government were the only people that knew about it.
You're like, damn, did I just get food poisoning?
Am I schizophrenic or
Am I losing my mind?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but so Sidney Gottlieb, he was part of the technical services staff, like you were saying. Yeah, and he would develop all kinds of interesting stuff. He would develop. They developed. I might have talked about it already, but I'll just mention it again. The cyanide pills and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Have to like instantly kill yourself, right? Or to try to
to instantly kill yourself, like for the spy plane pilots and stuff to take, where instead of them getting captured and spilling the beans, they can just eat the pill and don't got to worry about it.
Yeah, be done with it.
Yeah, but they had all kinds of stuff like pens. He developed like pins and stuff that you could spray stuff out of them, or they developed ways of putting stuff on bread, or they debate.
I remember the bread thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically came up with any possible way they could
Like somehow like dose people with something.
distribute the same product, either an aerosol or liquid or whatever it be. Yeah, Gottlieb was big into making poisons, all kinds of interesting stuff. When I was looking into him,
Wasn't he the one that had made like a ton? Like I even thought that was weird. But I mean, I guess maybe it could have been true. But like, didn't he make like a few different poisons to like help assassinate people? And it's just like they never got to where they were supposed to go. But like he was involved with making the poisons.
Yeah, like Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. He was there. He developed a specific poison for that. I can't quite remember exactly what happened, but it didn't quite work out, and he left. He wasn't able to actually poison the guy, but he developed that poison. It was like from botulism or whatever. Another thing I found when I was looking into him, his son-in-law was also a psychiatrist. His son-in-law is Dr. David Joseph Cheslick. He's still a psychiatrist in Santa Cruz to this day. And I find it quite interesting. Even his son-in-law is involved with psychiatry and all that. So his daughter, Penny, married this guy. Yeah, Dr. Joseph Cheslick. Good?
Yeah, you could have kept going. I was just.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I'll edit that all out. That makes sense.
Okay.
Let me just write that down.
But yeah, I found it very interesting that even his son-in-law he's like a neurosurgeon. He's involved in psychiatry. I found all kinds of stuff as college stuff and everything. But to me, that makes me wonder if
he's still continuing on with his father's work.
Yes, exactly. His father-in-law, yeah, because on his WebMD profile, it says 54 years of experience.
Long time on something.
But Sidney Gottlieb, he was part of this thing called it was a notorious meeting that happened, and it was called it was Deep Creek Lake. So they had a meeting at Deep Creek Lake, which is in Maryland. They all basically had this cabin, and Gottlieb basically dosed everybody there. Unwittingly, they were only told after they had took the LSD. But a guy named Robert Lashbrook, he's the guy that actually put the LSD in the alcohol. And this Deep Creek Lake meeting is notorious for basically because of a guy named Frank Olson, who was he was like a bacteriologist and a bioweapon warfare specialist, and he basically created all kinds of chemicals and drugs and everything for the CIA. A chemist. Robert Lashbrook dosed everybody at Deep Creek Lake, and at this event, it basically resulted in Frank Olson dying. For years it was said that he committed suicide. But it came out later, years later, that was not the case. And there's a lot of information behind it, and it was all covered up. And Sidney is tied right in with all of it. So I'm going to go back a little bit here because I'm going to start talking about Frank Olson. So Frank Olson, he was involved in a operation called Operation Sea Spray, which I think we kind of touched on episode 2 or something. So basically what it was, the U.S. Navy, they used an aerosol test over San Francisco.
Yeah, I've covered that on the show, on the NY Patriot show, actually, with like government tests on like, people. Yeah,
it was literally a test on all of San Francisco, and they said that it was harmless and what they used wasn't going to hurt anybody. Well, Frank Olson is the one that developed the chemicals that were used during this operation. And
that's interesting.
Literally, this when after the test, everybody would have been infected in San Francisco, and not only that, the surrounding areas such as Fresno were also affected, and several other areas. And there were people that died from it. There was a guy. Let's see here. Several people contracted a very rare urinary tract infections. All of those people actually recovered, but a guy named Edward J. Nevin, he just had recently had prostate surgery, like 3 weeks. He had just had recent prostate surgery. He died 3 weeks later from a heart valve infection. And there was even a Stanford doctor who wrote, the urinary tract outbreak was so unusual that they had no clue where it even came from. So there's clearly, there was something fishy going on, obviously.
Yeah.
the army, they never told doctors, they never told anybody any of that happened. Yeah, and it was
Is that the one where they even like had like I could be wrong. No, this might be this Manhattan. Maybe I don't know. I know at some experiment they even had like blowers on like the roofs of buildings and stuff too to help like blow like stuff.
No, I think it was this one. Yeah, I think it was this one. Yeah, they used the blowers to help move the aerosols, and they used. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that.
No, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, there was a couple bacteria they use. Is like a bacillus.
Yes, yeah, I remember that when I covered that in the other episode. They used that a lot.
Yeah, and they used a lot of different versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Bacillus atrophaeus. And it originated at Camp Dietrich in the 1950s by Frank Olson. Frank Olson is the one that created that. So that's one notorious event that Frank Olson was involved in. And Frank Olson was involved in all kinds of stuff. Experiments at Camp Dietrich where they experimented on monkeys and all kinds of animals. But he actually was highly affected by these tests, and he actually would talk to his good buddy when they would hang out and outside of work and stuff, and he was super affected by the monkeys dying and him being the result of these animals dying, and it really affected Frank Olson, even though a lot of people that knew him, according to Hank Abarelli, the author who did a book on the Frank Olson case, he claims that a lot of the people that were around him didn't like him very much because he was pretty arrogant and pretty outspoken.
That's funny.
And he didn't like authority. And mind you, Frank Olson was a civilian working for the Army.
He was like a private.
CIA.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he wasn't technically in the Army. He was a civilian.
That's like exactly like I think the case with Skinwalker Ranch show. That guy Travis over on Skinwalker Ranch, like he's like a civilian that I think is like a privatized, whatever worker for the government. And it's like I don't know, fishy.
Yeah, and so Frank Olson, he, like I mentioned, he worked at Fort Detrick. So while he was there, he developed all kinds of stuff. That's all they had him do was making different chemicals and drugs and all that stuff. And Camp Dietrich and Edgewood Arsenal, they're both in Maryland. There's a lot of interesting stuff even today with these places.
Weren't you telling me before that Maryland has like the highest, like, was it opiate problem or some shit like that?
Yeah, at one time, Maryland had the highest cases of heroin addicts in the country. Now, I'm not sure if that's true now because of fentanyl and all that. I'm sure it's changed, but yeah, at least in the early 2000s, they had crazy amounts of heroin addicts. And even that Hank Abarelli pointed out in his book that, there wasn't really any gangs, there wasn't really like mobs or anything that were providing the heroin and stuff. So I'll let you guys maybe come up with who might be providing the heroin. But there's other interesting stuff around these areas. Let's just say what happened the last few years back. There are rumors that it started there, if you believe it's a real thing.
Yeah.
There is a guy that actually has done a lot of work on that. Now, if you want to believe him or not, he does like live in China, exposing it, but I don't know. Maybe we'll cover that in episode 6. We'll get more into that when we talk about stuff going on today. But there's a lot of very interesting stuff that's happening still at these bases today, like weird vape lung diseases and all kinds of stuff that literally form right around the city and towns of these bases.
It's like testing areas.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let me get back to Olson. So Frank Olson, another notorious thing he was involved in, it happened in 1951. It's French, so I might not. Pont Saint Esprit is the town, and it happened in 1951. And what had happened is about 500 people got poisoned, basically, and a bunch of people went crazy and running around, and several people made it to the insane asylum, around like 50 people. I think like 5-6 people died. And for years, people didn't know what happened. But it eventually came out that the CIA was experimenting in this town, and when it originally first happened, Sandoz, the company that created LSD and stuff, which is actually Switzerland, is kind of close to this town. This town is pretty close to the France border and Swiss border, so they're pretty close. And a reason why this town was chose to be experimented on was it was a lot of the people that ran it, like the mayors and all those kind of people, they were like communists or supposed communists. The CIA experimented on this town. And what I was going to say, the original explanation was that they found that the bakery in town, that everybody that was affected had got bread that day from the local bakery, and bread in France, especially then, was delivered to your door, kind of like milk was here. And they said that it was ergot mold had got on the bread, and that's what caused it. But it actually turned out years later that it was actually the CIA who had basically poisoned the bread with LSD, or an LSD-like substance.
Yeah, derivative or some shit like that, yeah.
Yeah, and they had put it on the bread, and they had already developed ways of putting drugs on breads and all kinds of other stuff. Probably to the point where the bread maker didn't even have to be involved.
Oh, no, I wouldn't think so at all.
No.
I mean, technically, if you knew how to maybe like dilute it right, I mean, couldn't you just like basically mix it in a spray bottle and just like mist the bread a couple of times?
Exactly. No, exactly.
I mean, like, believe it or not, that's how crazy it is. Like, if you know, the only reason I really know what this shit is because I saw it in prison. People were smoking it in there. But like K2 or that type of stuff, it's like a lot of times that's like those are just like smokable herbs that somebody's taking a mixed chemical and literally probably has on this huge table or something, and they're just spraying it like that. And that's like why some people will, you know, get screwed up, and then some people who took 2 hits look like they fucking lost their mind. Because, like, you can't, like, how accurate, unless you got some sort of, you know, machine setup. And even then, like, with spraying stuff, you can't, like, sometimes there may be an overlap, you know, of a mist. So,
well, with that K2 and stuff, a lot of the times it's not even the same chemical. It's different chemicals.
Oh yeah, because they keep on legalizing
Right.
it, so then they just tweak it again and then tweak it again.
Yeah. Or even a different batch. You could buy probably the same bag or same company in 2 different batches and have a completely different reaction to it. Just yeah.
Oh, I saw
But
some
anyways,
wild shit. Yeah.
the way they dose the bread and stuff, nobody's exactly sure, but they know it came from the bread. And people went crazy. I mean, imagine, little kids and old elderly people and
What kind of
all
shit
these
show that might
people
have been to watch?
literally going nuts, literally going crazy. There's an account from an 11-year-old boy. Let me see if I can find it here. No, well, yeah, here we go. The 11-year-old boy, he tried to strangle his mother, and one of the doctors actually named the night Apocalyptic Night. I mean, people were literally going insane. I mean, there were people that committed suicide, and people around 50 people went to mental institutions and stuff, all from this. I mean, this is all a result of the CIA testing stuff on people, and this was actually part of the program MK Naomi. And Frank Olson is directly tied into this experiment. And when he came back, his same buddy, he told how affected he was with the monkeys dying and this and that. Well, he told his buddy, I can't believe what I just done and what I'm involved in. And basically from that point on, it took a little bit longer, but
Do you think like
he
he
wanted
screwed
to be
himself
done
saying
with the
that?
CIA.
Do you think like they realized that, and that's kind of like why what happened to him?
Yeah, they
It's like, oh, you start running your mouth like that to the wrong person, they'd be like, oh, so and so's already down, and they're in their feelings. Well, fuck, this guy knows too much.
Apparently the original plan with Frank Olson was to take him to a place called Chestnut Lodge, which is located in Rockville, Maryland. Let's see here.
Yeah, remember you telling me about that?
Yeah, it's 36 minutes from Camp Detrick today. So from Camp Detrick, where he worked, to this hospital in Rockville, Maryland, is about 35 minutes today. Chestnut Lodge, it was like the main psychiatric hospital that the CIA used for its own people. So they liked to, for some reason, send their own employees there. Whether, I don't know why they're having so many employees that are needing to go to the psychiatric hospital, but
you're right to have like a wing dedicated for them, right? There must be something wrong here. No matter how you look at it.
Yeah, apparently this hospital was the hospital for the CIA.
You know what I thought?
A lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good.
What I thought was interesting, not to jump ahead, because I'm sure like this kind of will help you short. I mean, I would think you'd bring this up with Judge Hunter White once we get into him. But like, remember I told you, I was like, it's interesting. They even though it was called the Chestnut Lodge, but it's a hospital. That's even weird in itself. Why would it have lodge? But they even had an Operation Climax. They had one of their safe houses in San Francisco at 225C Chestnut Street in San Francisco, California. So I even thought that was weird how during that operation they even was like on a place, like they picked a street, Chestnut Street. And then they had the Chestnut Lodge. Yeah, it's like, wow.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, is it? And I looked it up, and sure enough, it's Chestnut Street or whatever for the Midnight Climax. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if there's something behind that.
I just found that interesting. Maybe
that
it's
is
kind of like,
interesting.
I could see a chestnut maybe being used as a, either a pineal gland or maybe very. If you looked at a chestnut, maybe looked at some of the designs on some Empress cards, you almost see that type of shape, and I could see it being a symbol of in occultism, chestnut for sure.
Well, the hospital got it. They called it Chestnut Lodge because it had like 125 chestnut trees.
Okay.
But yeah, their original plan with Olson was to take him there because apparently he started talking about stuff that they were working on, different tests and different stuff, like with his buddy and stuff like that. And they found out about it. And they even interrogated him.
Now, did they dose him yet before they wanted to bring him there? Or?
I should have tied it in together. I was kind of over the place. I'm sorry. So when they went to that lodge, Deep Creek, the Deep Creek Lodge in Maryland, that's when he got dosed. And 10 days later, he died.
Yeah, because I thought it might have been like after he was dosed. I think like he was like starting to almost run his mouth a little bit more, but then like was also sounding a little crazy to some people because they might have continuously have dosed him actually after that. And they were like, oh, maybe we can try to get him like into a psychiatric place saying he's nuts. You know, I thought that might have been like an idea I thought I came across with him.
No, 100%. No, he started talking and instead he just wanted to leave. He wanted to leave the CIA and actually become a dentist. But there's for some reason they got rid of him because he never made it to that hospital. He died, and he died at
were you gonna get into the address of the place?
Yeah.
I thought that was actually interesting. I forgot what it was.
Yes.
But I was like,
yeah,
oh.
So he died at the Statler Hotel. And that Statler Hotel in New York is located on 33rd and 7th.
33rd.
Yeah, 33rd and 7th is where that hotel was at. And in that hotel, the Statler was huge for the CIA. I mean, they had get-togethers there, and I'm sure there's all kinds of connections that was in that hotel. It was, I think, 13 stories.
Oh, wow.
And the original story is Olson. He just jumped out the window and committed suicide.
Yep. And he was like, did they say he was like high on acid too when it happened?
I don't think he was. That was 10 days before he was. So Lashbrook, I think, gave him a sedative and stuff because Lashbrook was with him the whole time, even in the hotel room. So the guy that dosed him 10 days earlier at Deep Creek Lake was with him at the hotel when he jumped out the window. And Lashbrook actually, after he had jumped out the window, when they went up to the room, the night manager of the hotel and a couple CIA guys, they asked Lashbrook when they got up there, he's just laying in bed. He was just laying in the bed. No, he was not laying in bed. I'm sorry. He was in the bathroom with the door closed. And the weird thing is he never went and got anybody. He never alerted anybody. He wasn't worried. He wasn't in a panic. Nothing. He was just like, oh, he jumped out the window. They have a whole show on this, the Frank Olson murder on Netflix. It was called Wormwood.
Oh yeah, I did actually watch that. I mean, they do, at least they do a good job. I think at saying that's probably a bullshit, excuse.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to get you any closer to the truth, but it does at least shine a light on that.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually talk about who actually killed him. And there is information on who killed Frank Olson when he was thrown out the window. So there's a guy. There was two guys that were in the room next to the room they were in. And one of the guys' name was Jean-Pierre Lafitte, or he also went by Jean-Pierre Martin. And then there was another guy named Francois Spirito. These were the assassins that killed Frank Olson. These guys have crazy connections to the mob, to heroin dealing, to Jean-Pierre Lafitte is good buddies with George Hunter White. George Hunter White is actually who more than likely got him the job with all this stuff. Jean-Pierre Lafitte, he also worked for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, just like George Hunter White. Jean-Pierre Lafitte is involved in the JFK assassination. He was involved in Patrice Lumumba in the Congo.
Real quick, if you don't mind me, I just want to throw this in, just so like maybe we can just like get an idea of why we're even mentioning George Hunter White, and like maybe we don't even have to go back to it, but like real quick, just to summarize it real fast, in Project Climax, they were basically giving people LSD and then giving them prostitutes and seeing if they would talk more. And that was like what I was talking about before, how they had these safe houses. They were doing that there. They had cameras, two-way mirrors, all this crazy stuff going on. And George Hunter White was like one of the people involved, like running that for like Gottlieb and shit. And then like he gets these people involved as well. So like that's the connection with this guy, George Hunter White.
Yeah, George Hunter White had the connections with the French connections, which were basically the French mob that had, they were the ones that were importing heroin to Europe, into Canada, and into the United States.
Well, that could make sense with why Spirito, or however you say his name, how he came across him.
Yeah, and George Hunter White, he originally started with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He did apply for the FBI. The FBI didn't want him. They thought he was too much of a brute.
Yeah, well, he kind of seemed to be like be very like kind of unethical already with like the way he.
Well, for instance, during the Operation Midnight Climax, he would sit in a room next to the room where the Johns and the prostitutes were, and he had a mirror where he could look through the mirror and look in there. And he would have a mini fridge with all his cocktails and alcohol in the mini fridge. And then he would have a portable toilet in that room that he would sit on, where he didn't even have to leave the room, nothing. He could just go to the bathroom, get his alcohol, whatever, and just watch whatever happened in there.
That's some creepy shit.
Yeah, and I mean, and these safe houses that he had were completely rigged with cameras, with microphones, recording equipment, everything. And George Hunter White also had a safe house in New York as well, Bedford Street.
He did, yeah.
And same thing. It was completely rigged. He had fake paintings, and he made it all look all fancy and nice and everything. But the apartment was actually rigged full of cameras, two-way mirrors or one-way mirrors. Just you name it. I mean, and this guy, he was not he was like a gangster, basically. He was a gangster that worked for the CIA and the Narcotics Bureau. And George Hunter White, one of his famous things that people know him about is Billie Holiday. He arrested Billie Holiday, and he planted heroin on her. And she claimed that she had already been clean for a while. And George Hunter White basically, he was trying to infiltrate the jazz scene and the jazz musicians and arrest them. Yeah, he
Yeah, they
to
actually
me-
they had another place too in Mill Valley, California, as well as like you said in New York City. So I think they had like 3 of them at least.
Mhm.
So I mean, they had a couple of them going on for a minute.
Well, and when George Hunter White, his mother got sick. And when his mother got sick, he took some time off to go take care of her. Well, that's when Jean-Pierre Lafitte came in, and he basically did stuff that George Hunter White would have been doing. So he basically just took over for him. So more than likely, George Hunter White would have been the guy that killed Frank Olson, but it ended up being Pierre Lafitte.
Because of the position that he was in, yeah.
And
Him and
I have a quote.
Francois Spirito. I don't even know how you say that guy's name.
yeah, and I have a quote from George Hunter White.
Go for it.
I might have already talked about it, but it's worth mentioning again. I think I mentioned it in an earlier episode. And this is what he said. This is George Hunter White's quote on what he thought of about the stuff he did with the CIA and MK Ultra and everything else. I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? And George Hunter White died of cirrhosis of the liver on October 23rd, 1975.
Damn.
But yeah, that gives you a little example of what he is. And
You know, well, I would probably even say there's a lot more people that were probably like of that mindset that was involved with stuff like this. You know, even like 731 or just like a lot of like sick like experimentations on humans. Sometimes I think like there are people who are just like, oh, I could take advantage and just do some whatever the fuck I want, just because like they're sick.
no, they 100% looked for those types of people. Maybe not in all their positions, but in certain positions, they wanted a sociopath. They wanted
Sure.
somebody that could not really have emotion. That way, they were better, you know, at being undercover or
Testing.
testing, or, you know, they're not going to go home and be, you know, like Frank Olson. He you know, it affected him when the monkeys were being hurt, and it affected him when he saw what he had done in France and what he was at least a part of with France, and these people going crazy and people dying and this and that. Yeah, it's they specifically want more of those types of people, because if you have a sociopath, you don't got to worry about them. You know, I just dose somebody with LSD or something, and then they go home later, and now they're thinking about what they had done, and oh man, what happened to the person, and you know, they'd rather want somebody that could care less, that's going to get the job done, and that's all they care about.
Did you mention it before? Sorry, excuse me if you did. I may have forgot already. But did you mention that Lafitte also did work for like 3 years for the special investigator for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics?
Yeah, he worked for the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He worked for the CIA. And I'm pretty sure he worked for the FBI as well. He was actually arrested by the FBI in New Orleans. He was a cook, and he was actually a cook. I can't remember the guy's name, for a guy that was directly tied into the JFK assassination. That Garrison, the guy that had the Garrison. He was real famous for investigating the JFK assassination in the 70s. Well, anyways, a guy that he implicated in New Orleans, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, worked for this guy in the kitchen, because he would actually work in kitchens and different stuff as a side job.
Yeah,
Because when,
and you know what? There was something that I came across that mentioned. Sorry to interrupt you, but it mentioned like where his side jobs were. It's like he bounced around kind of, and they do actually question if that was all like kind of like his kitchen side jobs were to cover like operations or like drug trafficking and shit of reasons of why he was going to these places.
100%. Yeah, no, he would he could just disappear and for days or years or whatever. He would just be a ghost. But yeah, he would use the kitchens as like an alibi for whatever he's doing.
Yeah,
but
for why you're in another state 3 months later now. You know, exactly.
Yeah, but he was actually a legitimate.
They said he was good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually good at all that. He actually trained and did that all when he was a kid. He trained and worked in kitchens because he thought they were more safe and it was a safer area and warm and stuff. And he didn't have to worry. And then he realized later in life that, holy crap, man, this is actually works out. I can use this. Yeah. But yeah, this guy is, the Wormwood doesn't talk about it, but him and Spirito are the guys that killed Frank Olson.
There's some, there was also, unfortunately, maybe you might have found more, and that would be great if you did, but like I came across one thing where it just mentions that during World War II, he is thought to have been involved in a number of OSS operations in Nazi-occupied Europe. But then, like, besides that, I couldn't really find any in details. So,
yeah, no,
he found that interesting though.
Him and Spirito in France in the 40s, they were actually providing like items that weren't going to France at the time when the Nazis took over France. They were actually providing these items for these Nazi soldiers that were in France at the time.
Oh, you know, I had that under that other guy, but like that was even vague of like what for me, it was a little vague, but it did say like they were sending like, I think, hard to obtain supplies to Nazi troops.
Yeah, it was basically like items that were banned from being imported there because the Nazis took it over.
You know what I'm wondering, though? Because believe it or not, it's a funny coincidence, and if this is even true, there's like someone like, I think, American History Channel or something that I have on like my Fire Stick here. And or American Heroes or something like that. But for some reason, they're constantly covering the Nazis. But it's like, you know, kind of like shining light on like how screwed up they were. And they were saying that like it was to the point to where their like amphetamine addiction for the troops was so bad that like since that shit was considered legal, but you know, people on the outside regular world probably weren't consuming it and staying up as much as these soldiers were. So like you didn't see where it could really take someone. So it was like actually legal, and it had all these, you know, it was like a miracle drug too. So like they were having like family members or people like sending it in because like they were like so fucked up. It's like they just wanted more besides like what they're already being given. So now like I'm wondering, like, could they have been somehow involved with maybe importing drugs to the troops?
Oh, they 100% were,
that?
In my opinion. I think they were. Yeah, I think they were, and probably other items as well that weren't being imported in.
And what they were saying is that, like, since the people on the outside, you know, that weren't seeing or hearing about the effects of this shit on the troops, were thinking nothing of it. It's like, oh, you know, because it was already like, you know, and it fixed every ailment already, you know. Oh yeah, sure. It's like it would be like sending somebody like a bottle of like NyQuil or Dayquil. You know, that's how it was to them. But to this, you know, the person already hooked on it. It was a fix for them.
Well, they actually concocted a whole story on Lafitte. The FBI and CIA had a cover story basically saying that he had came here with drug trafficking and got arrested and all that. But that was all a cover, and it was a complete lie. and like George Hunter White and all them they actually knew the real reason why he was here, which was to help the CIA. And the CIA was directly involved with working with I have so many names here that we could probably do an episode on Lafitte. Just tons of mob members and stuff. And, the CIA would actually use criminals and gang members to do some of their stuff for them.
Well, see, this is what I find, not to interrupt you too much. Sorry, but it's just, you're talking about Lafitte and like drug trafficking. And like, I do have notes that I eventually can get into, maybe to cover the other guy a little bit. But like, just right there, you have two guys that were involved with like MK Ultra and pushing this dude out the window that were also both involved in different ways of drug trafficking and probably had done it together. But I know like Spirito was also working with somebody else, this Carbone guy, and they were like, I think, doing, prostitutions, drugs, white slavery, all sorts of shit.
Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, like you have like these two. It's just really like, I don't know.
No, there's him and Spirito, they were working together in the 30s in France. They were literally importing like raw opium from Turkey and
I think even like Egypt. Yeah, Egypt too, yeah.
China and all that, and they would bring it to where they lived, which is Marseille or however the hell you say it.
Yeah, I don't know how you say it, Marseille or some shit like that.
Yeah.
In France.
But yeah, they were bringing in the purest opium and purest heroin all over. He directly worked with the number one trafficker that brought stuff from China to Europe, and then that guy taught him how to smuggle everything, how to bring it into Canada, and then from Canada he would bring it to New York. And
another thing with that guy, Spirito, real quick, I just have like a couple of lines right here I think would just be great to add to this. He's like been dubbed the father of modern heroin traffickers. He was born in Sicily in 1898, and he spent a lot of time in that area, Marseilles, however you want to say it. The 1970 French film Barcelino was largely based on his life, but it did kind of leave out a lot of his Nazi collaboration. But I mean, I think that movie has to do with like drug trafficking, and he was also one of the leaders of the French Connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's huge right there.
And he's the connection to George Hunter White. So the French Connection, George Hunter White was tied into. Spirito is that connection. He's the guy that put all that. Where do you think the CIA was getting all their heroin to give to these prisoners and stuff? The CIA wasn't going downtown and buying it from some drug dealer down there. They had the connection.
And like this is like the weird thing. You got two drug traffickers that both I think dealing with heroin, that were kind of involved with MK Ultra. And then like before, I was talking about how there were some doctors that were looking at ways of dealing with heroin or opiate addiction, like methadone and or Narcan, stuff like that. So like, and they were like kind of like, I just really start to wonder now how much, or maybe Nazis or MK Ultra might have even been into the whole opiate thing, and like we just never even caught on to that. I just do find it weird how like you have these guys that were, known for importing heroin into the places and running it, and then like you got scientists on the other end, fucking with methadone, coming up with methadone.
I mean, I would honestly assume that they, that's just like the Iran-Contra and the crack epidemic, they were directly selling to people like in LA and stuff. And then these people would sell all the crack, and then all that money would go back to the CIA or whatever. It would not surprise me one bit that they're involved, somebody in the CIA's selling it to some drug dealer in town, and then now this drug dealer selling it all around, and it causing the whole thing, causing the whole, causing the addiction in the first place. Now these people are in the prison. Now they're addicted, and now we can test on them. Now we can try out methadone. Now we can try out all these other stuff and see how all this stuff works.
Yeah, and if we can get it to work, then the state will, whoever's running it, they will control it and give you. It's just like really, kind of like, geez, I don't know, man. Weird stuff. That guy, Spirit, or however you say his name, maybe to sum it up and whatever on him, unless you got more. But he was arrested in New York on the 23rd of August in 1951 on the suspicion of drug smuggling. And while he was in custody on the 24th of October, the French Court of Appeal found him guilty, in his absence, obviously, because he's locked up, of theft, and sentenced him to 20 years of hard labor. Jeez, pretty hard for theft. The French authorities requested his extradition on November 15th of that year. In February 1952, a federal court in New York sentenced Spirito to 2 years in prison on drug trafficking charges. And then at the end of 1953, soon after his release from prison, he was deported from the U.S., supposedly, to France for entering the country illegally. So, and then I guess eventually he died, but he even did do time here for drug trafficking. So.
Well, what's interesting with that, Frank Olson died on November 28th, 1953, and this guy is involved in it. Oh. And look at the year you just said that he was. Oh, wow. Brought back to France.
Damn. Imagine all right, coast is clear. Guy's dead. Send them back home.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, because it says at the end of 1953, soon after his release from prison, he was deported from the U.S. to France. At the end of 53, and November's right at the end.
Holy. Yo, imagine there's something up with that. That's
and what wild. A cover story. No, he's in prison. Yeah, and honestly, if you guys want more information on these guys, literally get the book A Terrible Mistake by Hank Abarilli. The guy, I originally found that Poisoner in Chief book. It ain't nothing compared to what this guy has. That guy is amazing, to be honest with you. The stuff that he found and how many years he put into that book. And it's about 5 books in one book. It's like 900 pages. So just on these guys that we just mentioned, I could mention, there's so much stuff on them. Like I said, we could do an episode on one guy. There's so much information out there.
Especially when you get onto this topic with all the different people that were associated and that hotel and who might have been there, and it's that whole Frank Olson thing really is a huge spider web in itself.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, you know what? One thing that they even used in 1951 while enlisted Lafitte's help. Now I think this is the Federal Narcotics Bureau. They kept using him. And sometime after the war, he hooked up with George Hunter White with the Federal Narcotics Bureau. Maybe this was prior. Oh, yeah, this could have been. Yeah, this was prior to the situation with Olson. In 1951, he used Lafitte's help in a major narcotics case. Joe Dornay, an alias of Joseph Orsini, was arrested in. And basically they put him in the cell and like kind of like got him to, I mean, talk to him a lot. And basically, I guess, like, I'm assuming when Lafitte's getting in there and comes across this guy, he must be getting out earlier. Like, he's coming, even though he's coming in after the fact, he's doing less time. He's going to be leaving soon. Somehow, I mean, maybe this guy, from being in, like, around shady shit and doing shady shit himself, I mean, I guess he probably could talk about and brag about how he's, like, ran, like, drug operations and done illegal shit. Supposedly, somehow he even got, like, this guy to basically give him information about his criminal network and was going to kind of allow him to mine the store while this guy was still locked up for a bit. And then Lafitte left and just, you know, now the guy's screwed. You know? He basically gave him all the information they needed now to bust the guy. So that's some wild shit. I wonder, like, how long you got to stay in a place like that to do that, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, how much time is spent?
Like, you know, the way this Lafitte guy is described, he's literally described as like the agent, the assassin, the guy that you think of when it comes to what, you know, a CIA agent would be.
Yeah, I think they said that he was, like, really good with getting information out of people.
Oh, yeah, he was really good at it. And he you know, and him, like in George Hunter White, like I said, he's like a criminal and stuff. Like, this guy did drugs. He took drugs off criminals he arrested and then would use them on his cell, use them for himself. He drank constantly. He did all that. And him and George White and Lafitte would, like, party together. You know, here I have a particular thing where Lafitte and White were in Vegas, and there's this place, this person named Roxy. The person Roxy had a like a bordello, and this is what it says here. Yeah, it says, one can imagine that White could hardly stay away after Lafitte had telephoned him to report that Roxy's bordello was populated with more than 24 of what he termed the most beautiful and sexiest dolls you've ever seen. But imagine is all we can do, as White did not detail the visit in his date book. So they're freaking partying and shit in Vegas.
Yeah, it's like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
And guess what? White brought LSD with him to Vegas during that trip. Yeah, so they're probably Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But here's the quote that this was years. This is after retiring from the Narcotics Bureau. George White said of Pierre Lafitte, "I thought I had led a damn interesting life, but compared to Pierre, my times were pretty tame. I've done it all, but he's done even more, and before some of it was ever done, he invented it. He was what you call a changeling. I don't mean master of disguises. I mean an actual chameleon, a man that had the ability to transform himself right in front of you. He could go from good to bad, from rich to poor, from royalty to commoner, from intellectual to simpleton, from hoodlum to police officer. He would disappear for months or years at a time, and then he would show up, knock on your door like only a day or two had passed. He mastered time as if it affected him. He mastered time as it affected him. It was as if time waited for him. I liked him, but I never trusted him because he was always in the game. He only loved and cared for his wife and children. Everyone else was fair game in the scheme of things. He was the greatest imposter and confidence man that ever lived. Not because he was a good actor, but because he was 100 different people in one." And that's from White's autobiography.
That's why it was probably so important to them.
Yeah, and a guy like George White saying that, I mean,
you know, I have seen people say, like, I was reading something where it was like talking about George Hunter White when I was going through him, like, originally, like before I think we even recorded part 1. And I was reading through somebody's work. I think it was like a book. And like the person started getting, like, I guess a little bit of like kind of like a personal take on the person, on George Hunter White. And sometimes I wonder if it really was the case. They said that, like, if it really wasn't for some of his connections that he had made in like the seedy world or like the drug world and like all this other shit, like he probably really wouldn't have been worth that much. Like to be using. Like, it was kind of more of like he was just really good with like getting people to do shit that needed to be done. Because even if like, like you were saying, even like with the way that like he even got any notoriety in like law enforcement, it was like fucking shady crime to begin with, you know.
Well, I found
and like he had like supposedly like a horrible track record. Like, yeah,
I found FBI documents, or the FBI was actually watching him during the safe house. The FBI had some informant that was actually working with Hunter White, and the FBI was trying to figure out what the truth serum was, and the informant actually got a hold of the whatever it was. They tested it and everything. The FBI was actually trying to develop a case on him. And yeah, he would apply for different places and the people would turn him down because he was just too rough. Like he always had a gun on him. He always had one of those blackjack things, which is those little, like a little thing you can just smack somebody in the back of the head with it or whatever.
Yeah. Wow, that's old.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, I mean, and him and Lafitte, they actually basically got this mob guy to admit a bunch of stuff, and they got the mob guy killed by the mob, but then they also got all the information from him. Yeah, like they dosed a guy with acid at that New York safe house.
Wow. Was there
I mean, there's so much, I'm telling you.
Was there anything else? Yeah, no, there really is on these people for sure. There was like definitely stuff that I even left out. That I was just like, oh, we'll drag it on too long. It's just I find this whole situation just very interesting, and you know even that whole case itself is very shady. You know, the Frank Olson and throwing himself out the window, but being pushed out the window. But like people that were associated with that whole group, like you got drug traffickers. It's like fucking mobsters basically. What the fuck? I don't know. A lot of weird connections and like total other rabbit hole that you can go down, a really spider web. Really.
Oh, I'm telling you, this stuff could spider webs all over the place. Because Lafitte's directly tied in with the JFK assassination. He's directly tied in with the killing of Patrice Lumumba, or the assassination. Imagine all the other stuff he's involved in.
You know, and one thing, I don't know, unless do you have really anything else you want to cover? Do you think maybe we could just leave it there and we'll cover the other stuff in the next show?
Yeah, I think we leave it there.
The one thing I do, I don't know if this is maybe something that eventually will go down this road later on, but, one thing that I was kind of like getting at earlier, and I do think, for people who are researchers or into digging into stuff themselves, that listen to the show, which I do believe there is a lot of you out there. I am starting to wonder now, like, we've always been known as like the Nazis kind of like testing speed and, amphetamines, basically almost practically meth back in the day, methamphetamines, giving it to their troops. And like, now seeing like this drug connection, like, well, you know, and then they had the LSD thing, you know, the Nazi scientists coming over here and using different chemicals and hallucinogenics and like their drugs in a sense. I'm wondering, like, could there be more of a connection with like even the drug problem in this country due to maybe some of the stuff in the past with them?
I think so.
You know, I'm not denying like either, like, you know, I do know for a fact at one point, just because of like the whole thing with the steroid use, China was real quick and was trying to push fentanyl onto me, and this is back in like 2010 or 11. You know, when I was just buying like raw hormones to like make steroids with. So like I can tell you for a fact, like I do know that like fentanyl was coming over a lot from China, literally through the fucking mail, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who's to say that's not coming from like Germany? And like, who knows? But like, I do question, like, you know, is some people maybe getting pointed at that are involved, but like, is there like another player in the game that always seems to be like the, you know, the you know, don't look over here too much, you know,
or who helped create the labs and all the stuff that makes all the precursors in China? Like, who was there to help create all that?
It's just, I don't know. I find this very interesting that, you know, they were kind of messing with drugs that were, you know, cause dependence, or is something that is kind of like an epidemic in a sense. You know, I would say meth has like really kind of done some damage to this country. So, you know, it's just very weird how like you see these things as being a problem now here. Interesting. Just
meth has ruined numerous families, numerous lives. That stuff is literally Satan.
Yeah, I think we'll just wrap it up there. Keep it at about an hour and a half. I think that's good. I didn't get to Lily. That will be in the next episode for sure. And, you know, to be totally honest with you, even that topic, even though I had notes on it, that's, in my opinion, is like kind of a few years down the road, I think, even from this. So, like, I kind of knew that that's like almost, I would say, near the tail end of supposedly MK Ultra in a sense. So, I guess it worked out. It wasn't really meant to be in this episode to begin with.
Yeah, we got to talk about what's his name?
Definitely
the stupid doctor, Jolly West. Yeah, we got to talk about Jolly for sure. And we have to talk about how MK Ultra wasn't all about LSD either. I mean, that I feel like that is a big. They make it like it's all about LSD and that's it.
Yeah. Where
nobody else looks into all the other stuff they did, like the hypnosis and electroshock and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much again, Thrash. This was a great episode. I really had I mean, all the other ones were too, but this one went great. I was really happy with it. And I think this series is, different for sure, I think. And I think it was well worth making as many episodes as there is so far. So thank you very much. You know, it's definitely been an experience for me just looking into MK Ultra a little bit more than I used to know prior to the series.
No, thank you. It's been a interesting
educational
topic for the year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right. It's so funny how like the timing, like even I guess not to toot my own horn, but it just seems kind of weird how like when we were covering this, I mean, I think episode 1, I'm even in my old apartment. I think I might be on the couch.
You are. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I mean, that shows you how long ago we started this. It's just that we knew it was going to be a very long series, and I wasn't pressing us to rush through episodes. So I gave us ample amount of time to do it, and it was going to take a few months if this many episodes. But it just seems funny. It's a wild how, like, I had that coming out around now, and I even had like somebody else willing to come on the Occult Rejects and cover like the occult symbolism behind the National Socialist Party and all that. And it's, I don't know, when you start looking at like some of the stuff in this and then like the other stuff with that topic, it's like in some ways I still see it now just in a different way. And it's like, did things really stop, or is it just progressed in different vehicles?
Well, you know, it's honestly, this is kind of going to probably start a whole thing for me. because I'm actually going to start trying to get FOIA requests and try to get documents and stuff on certain people and everything. So hopefully in the future, because sometimes those FOIA requests could take a year.
Yeah.
You know, I might do an episode on something with new information. That's something nobody has or something.
You know, I would, believe it or not, from our experience, I guess as long as what I was being shown was even truthful. And I think I did do one myself. They got rejected, but there was times that me and Lux did put in FOIA requests for certain things. And besides the fact that they will play like games to where it's like, I think you have to have it like specifically worded exactly what you're asking for. And if it's off on the smallest little thing, they can deny you if they want to be pricks. But we did get responses. I think like it was like 2-3 weeks, actually. I was actually kind of surprised. But like, again, they were denials. But we did get responses rather faster than I thought we would. So maybe you should actually get on that faster than you think.
No, the Hank Abarelli had a story on Lafitte. He filed for FOIA requests on Lafitte, came back, said nothing. They said they had nothing, no information on him, nothing. He filed a request on somebody else, and they sent him a document that had Lafitte in that document.
See, that's it. See, and the funny thing is that person might have probably did that all on purpose because they're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to look for a person that he was supposedly associated with and see if they'll give me their info. Yeah, that's a genius way to do it. That's smart as shit. Nice. Good for them. Good for them. You want to plug your stuff again real quick before we wrap this up, my man?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's thrash_talk or Narmosh Thrash is just my personal, and then just Thrash Talk on YouTube. Probably by the end of, probably give me 3 weeks, I'm going to have a Pueblo Clown episode going.
Nice, good. I really hope you do, actually. That'd be very nice. All right, so definitely check out his stuff. His links will be in the bottom because he's going to send them to me as soon as he gets off the show. And I'll make sure I put them in the shows that are already out in case I left any of them out. And that is the end of episode 4. Like I said, obviously there's going to be a 5. And if we wrap things up in that, like I said, there will be another one of kind of like what's going on now, in a sense. That, though, you will have to listen to on the Occult Rejects RSS feed. That one I will drop on there. So if you want to hear, I guess, the rest of the whole series, you're going to have to catch that one over there. So, part 5 of this will be ending, I guess, the RSS feed for the NY Patriot Show. And you'll have to catch part 6 on the Occult Rejects RSS feed, where the NY Patriot Show will be dropping regularly every Monday. I because of the thing that I have with Spreaker, you're kind of pretty much paying for rented space or time. With the package I have, like, eventually I will start like getting close to the end, but there's things I could do. There are extra episodes, like sometimes when I'm a guest on somebody's show, I'll share it. I could drop that to make room if I have to, but I might be going on, or I am. It just depends on when. I will be going on Free World FM, I think it is. It's horrible that I can't even give you the exact name. But it's like an internet radio. Billy Ray Valentine, my buddy, hooked me up and gave me a chance to go on there. That I think, as far as I know, I probably can release those episodes on my end. Not obviously the same day. I'll wait a little bit, but I may be able to use that as extra episodes. So like even going forward with the NY Patriot Show, besides being on Mondays, I may actually have extra stuff that I will be dropping from that. That Free World FM thing will probably be much more different format than my show. It might actually jump around and just be like a total mishmash of like all different things. One week I may be covering news topics like I do in Clown World, but looking at it in an occult aspect. One week I might be covering occult crime. Another week I could be looking at the never-ending story finally or something. But, I just think like that's kind of just going to be like me just freestyling occult things that I've been interested in that I probably I really haven't gotten to on the NY Patriot Show and the Occult Rejects. So maybe I'll just kick it with somebody else and just talk some smack about it. So that might be like an extra thing coming out. If not, then it will just stay on freeworld.fm. I'm pretty sure it is. So yeah, coming like after Thanksgiving, look for that. Internet radio, I think will be Wednesdays, like in the afternoon, 1 or 2 o'clock, be live internet radio, the NY Patriot Show. So, all right, after I'm done rambling and done plugging my stuff, thank you again, Thresh. I know I already said that a few times, but for real, this has been a very time-consuming series, but like, again, I learned a lot, and it was fun doing it with you, and, I can't complain. I'm very happy we actually committed to doing this.
I'm happy too.
Yes, and that is the end of another NY Patriot Show. So until the next one.